back here with Bob Schieffer and Alex Wagner. I do want to get your thoughts quickly on the New York Times report today that had, perhaps in the vetting process, Donald Trump Jr. calling a senior advisor to John Kasich and making a rather extraordinary offer, saying how would Governor Kasich like to be the most powerful vice president in history, essentially handling both domestic and foreign policy, to be something of perhaps an executive vice president, not unlike you were just telling us, was really perhaps an offer that Henry Kissinger and others wanted Ronald Reagan to make to Jerry Ford back in 1980. This is pretty
making him kind of the executive vice president.
Yeah,
well, let me just say this. This is an offer that nobody would be able to carry out. That just could not happen. And the first time that the vice president did something that caused an embarrassment to the president, that arrangement would come to a crashing halt. But the other part is that John Kasich would have wanted no part of this. He does not like what Donald Trump stands for. He does not like Donald Trump's message. And he has told friends the reason he has not shown up at this convention is he feels it would put his stamp of endorsement on it. And he said, he told a friend of mine, I got to go home and face my wife and children at the end of the day. And he said, I couldn't do that. And so I don't think that ever would have happened. I don't know if such an offer was made, but I'm also just absolutely convinced that such an offer could not be put into reality.
Is it another variation, Alex, to this, if nothing else, this Trumpian hyperbole that you know, in the way we've spoken about the plagiarism controversy, as it reflects the campaign and the state or the disarray of the campaign? Is this not perhaps another window into a look at that?
Sure, because, you know, as the Trump campaign is effectively offering to abdicate the presidency, the other piece of the story is that they spent a remarkably short amount of time vetting everybody on the short list. I mean, so at once they're offering an unprecedented amount of power, but the process by which they choose the person to offer that power to is effectively a speed date. I mean, if you read the story by Robert Draper in the magazine, it is remarkable how they sort of just run through this list of 12 candidates, and it's sort of this very brief, emotional, you know, kind of surface.
Well, it seemed like at one
decisions.
point there were some 16 candidates. They winnowed that down to 6. 16, 5 of which we should say were women. One of those, Joan Ears, was in the final 6. But to your point, they sort of came in, it sounded like, for face-to-faces. Yes, speed dates, really lunches perhaps.
Only with less conversation.
Indeed. And it seemed as he settled on Mike Pence with any amount of discussion in his most inner of circles, it seems that he only checked the most basic of boxes. He's a Republican, he's a conservative.
He's a governor.
And he's a governor, and maybe it'll make some of these people who are ranting from the heavens at me do that.
It's kind of like,
loudly.
I have a headache. What's going to make the headache go away? Mike Pence will make the headache go away. Let's pick him.
So to Mike Pence, again, he seems to be, I mean, Bob, in a way, as you just said, you don't think it matters a whit what he says, but in the optics of the evening, what sort of pressure then is on him?
Well, he doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't want to make any grammatical errors. I mean, he wants to present himself as an intelligent person, which I think he is. I think he's a respected conservative in his party. But again, I don't think it matters very much. I will tell you one thing. A friend of mine told me we were talking about John Kasich. Somebody asked John Kasich, he didn't know Mike Pence very well, and someone asked what he thought of him, and he said, well, he'd only met him during the Indiana primary. He said, a very pleasant meeting, and someone said, well, what is your takeaway? He said, well, he's a really good listener. When they passed that story on to me, I said, well, that's how he got the nomination. You know, that's how Trump picked him. He's a good listener. That may be a major part of his role.
Didn't have a whole lot to say in a meeting, and perhaps Donald Trump thought it went really well because of it.